Okay, good morning YouTubers, afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. Reason I haven't been so active on the YouTube site here is I had a bad fall, broke both my feet, and that's been about 6 to 8 weeks, and I'm going into the doctor's tomorrow, or early next week I should say, to x-ray the bone to see if what's happening. I'm hobbling around. And there's a big Rust Junkie Fest, which we've had every year, and this one will be their third annual. But what this one is about is mostly my reintroduction to, because I am getting back to things. I got a package that a great friend in England, Mr. Mark Wallace, who is just an excellent Wadkin aficionado over there, and if you know anything about Wadkin, you're going to know who Mark Wallace is. Anyway, he was so kind as to let me ship stuff to his house, and so while I was in traction, so to speak, I surfed eBay UK for bits and bytes and tooling for a lot of this vintage English machinery, which over here in Canada, where I'm located, you just can't find the little small parts, and there's quite an assortment over in England, obviously. But many of the sellers on eBay or the auctions do not ship out of the country for a number of reasons, and so Mr. Wallace was gracious enough to let me use his address, collected all the things, and of course packaged them up, and so this video will be the unpackaging, and for me to show you what I actually collected. So if we can pan over here, this is the crate Mark made, and it obviously had a bit of damage. I haven't seen inside of it, and I thought I'd open it straight up. Obviously we have here, it says it's been checked by X-ray, so it wasn't shipped by Bin Laden. And the crate says it's 89.5 pounds. This little collection here is not all strictly Wadkin gear, but does relate to it in a lot of ways, and so we'll see how it is. I'm surprised the English use Phillips screws and not lovely square drive Canadian stuff. At any rate, we'll see how this could be. There we go. Now, let's see what we got here, and I'll use perhaps this little area as a display. Oh, I should have maybe done that, but we'll see what we got here. Looks to be survived to some degree. So let's see what we have. And obviously Mr. Wallace's crating held up just fine. I don't see any damage. The first thing I got here is, oh, these are lovely. These are the isolation boxes, and they're MEM. These are the isolation boxes in England, and they're just lovely. These actually, Mark had grabbed a great collection of them, and look at how cool that is. I mean, these are Art Deco, really just absolutely cool. Mark found a huge collection of those. Here is a same maker in a start switch. These are all cast iron. Bakelite. These are magnificent little switches. I've been looking for one of these forever, and very excited to get that. I can't say I got that at a fantastic price, but I didn't pay too much. Shipping this was about $250. So everything here has to add $250, but I personally, that was personally within what I call the. Do we have a knife, razor, or something, or even just one of the blades out over here? Let's see what we got here. Not sure. I think this would be dado blades, so I'm not quite certain what's in here, but they might be high-speed dado blades, which I do want to run on my shaper for certain operations because I can modify them, and I think they'll be inexpensive. I also like the fact, can you see the name of that in the, can you read that? That's Burrs Green. So this is from the factory. They look to be in mint condition, and they're not so large that I can't spin them on the shaper. So that was, and I can maintain them and sharpen them. They came with chippers and two, so this will make a great custom trenching head for my shaper in high-speed steel for doing nice deep grooving or even tenons. So that's what that is. That sort of was an extra. This is an actual riving knife for a radial arm saw. The Burrs Green BTR, I believe, is the model, the one that somewhat looks like a DeWalt. And I've actually never seen one of those before. I did get two, and I sold one recently. So these are very interesting. Of course, the Americans never had a riving knife on radial arm saws. Let's see what we got here. Oh. Another MEM switch. How cool is that one? These are little disconnect switches with, you know, little pop open. That's all glass, you know. So these are really, really cool. I can't thank Mark enough for these. They're rated 250 volts, 3-phase. So, you know, look at where the wires go in. This is pretty cool. This is really, really cool. Like, that is just really cool. Next up would be what's in these. And so, these are probably what I hunt for constantly. Yes, indeed they are. These are, look at how lovely it's packed. These little scary devices are, of course, Burrs Green heads. And they actually go on the radial arm saw. And I believe this set here I got for, they stack together, and you put these spacers, which I'd never had, in between, and you can do magnificent trenching work. These could be run on spindle molders as well, and they're of the diameter that is appropriate. And so there's one. I believe I actually managed to get one in absolutely mint condition. This one here is never ever been used. So it is, it's in magnificent condition. Also a number of spacers here, thin ones which I didn't have to go along. Because these are expandable. Looks like I've got a few spare bolts. Okay, so perhaps the other parts are there. There's one, half of one. There's these blades. Let's see what we got. Let's see if the rest are in here. Is that the other half? Oh, there's the other half of this one. More spacers, which like these are little 16s with the pin. These are pin drive. Wadkin made these up to 13 inches in diameter for the PK. They're solid bronze casting with laminated high-speed steel on soft steel, and I love them. Some people find them scary, so there's another set. Okay, so I'd like to sharpen these and run them on shaper and the other, and of course more stacks, little fatter ones. So I've got, I've even got one of the pins, which I never even really knew what those were. And so I've got all of my stacks. Wow. So there is my third set, and of course these have never been done, never used, ever used. So these are from the 50s. I do have Wadkin catalog pictures where you'll see shelves of these, and so it's pretty exciting to see a brand new set never used. So that's a great addition. I'm glad I got that. I now have approximately 5 sets of these. I've got one huge one for the big huge crosscut, and of course even came with probably the original sockets. So I'm super excited about that. So we'll put these over here, and these are probably the original boxes, because those are I do see those numbers in my Wadkin machine, and it does say that it's for the 14-inch radial arm saw, which is what I have. So that's just fantastic. Now this I can't believe I found, and I was missing off of my big huge 26-inch jointer. And this is the counterweight for the bridge guard. And I was going to make it, but when I saw this come up, I just couldn't believe it. And so there's the counterweight for my bridge guard to counterbalance it, so that it's very easy to lift up and down. And so very, very excited to have that. There was actually 2 on eBay at the same time, and I managed to get the one with the chain, which I needed, and I think Ryan out in Calgary got the other one for his RM. So let's see what we got in here. Put these away. I still don't see my chippers. Oh, this is full. Okay, so what do we got here? We've got a package here, which this looks to be, oh, okay. Oh, look at this. Do I have original Burrs Green oil paper. Or no, I don't. What is that? That's nothing. Coratex, maybe somebody knows of what that is. But look, these are for the spindle molder. I love these. I can run my blades backwards in the spindle molder. So in other words, if I want to do a tenon in the molder, I can put these together like this, run a spacer between those two, and my chipper's on the outside, and make a custom spindle in high-speed steel, and I think these will be fantastic. Once again, didn't really pay an enormous amount, and I thought it was, can you read the name? Burrs Green. Can you see the Burrs Green fence houses? And you know, original, never used. It does look like it might have been used once or twice. Still sharp, no rust. That's just something that doesn't show up in that condition. So that was those. Awesome size for a spindle molder too at proper speeds. Okay, here's something I'd never seen before. In my research, a little research, I came across a number of Sheffield hollow chisel makers that make hollow chisel bits in what's called the English pattern. And this was reputably a very good maker of augers. In fact, it appears that most of the makers of augers also made hollow chisel bits. And from what I could tell, this one looked to be of an exquisite quality. And it appears it has never been used. The British pattern obviously differs from the modern Japanese pattern, and this one's quite interesting. It has chip extractions from both sides as well as a side port. And what I love about the British pattern, can you see that? Is that focused? Is there's no center spur. There's no center spur. Let's see here. There's no center spur. There's no center spur, and these create a flat bottom mortise. So in other words, those little spurs meet those points. Now these aren't as pointy. The other thing that's fantastic is they're double helix, and they don't have as much slop as the modern ones, and these do a flat bottom. In fact, if these are properly set up, you can actually drag the bottom of shallow mortises to clean them up. So these are exquisite. Chilco, one of the most common makers of this, who recently still made them, and these are hammer forged. Routinely these sold for £100. So these are pretty rare, and I'm very excited to have that good of a quality. It is truly a magnificent quality. So that's that. Let's see what other bits we have here. What do we have here? Oh, well, absolutely every English machine restore needs British standard Whitworth taps and dies, and I managed to get an entire collection of Dormer, which is a very extremely high quality maker. And from what I could tell, they looked exquisite. This is, of course, your half 12, the one that causes the most of us problems. But more importantly, these dies are British Standard Whitworth, which is a 55-degree pitch, and in some cases not. Here's a 511. That doesn't even look used. That is not even used. Oh, it's not used. That's never been used. Dormer as well. Exquisite 511. Very common for the PK. So this will be fantastic for making fence parts and whatnot. I'm very happy to get these. Generally, new, they're just unaffordable. I bought a tap from the engineering company here, and I think I paid $75 before I became enlightened, but got everything down to, geez, I'm not even sure. Like what, I think quarter 20 is the smallest. No, here's a 3/16 24 British Standard Whitworth. So that's just fantastic. Let's see what else we got here. Fantastic packaging, Mark. Okay. These are, of course, I don't want to let them. These are British taps, and these are extremely long. These ones are same maker, Dormer, and these, I'm gonna say, look brand new. And of course, I recently learned from Richard on one of the woodworking sites that there's 3 types of taps. There's the tapered tap, which is a 1, and you'll see other taps that aren't as tapered. Then you'll see these taps, which are called bottom taps. They'll get the cutting all the way down. So I guess typically, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, you'd start with that tap, you'd do the next tap, and then you'd do that tap to do a blind tap. And these ones are special because they're extremely long, so they'd be great for fences and stuff like that. A beautiful British Standard half 12. Anybody with English machines needs one of these. These are 5/8. Now I believe these spiral ones are speed taps, and you do not need, someone can correct me, to reverse and clean the chips. These are self-cleaning taps. And of course, there's no rust on them. They're exquisite condition. And so I have a couple half 12s. I have a 7/16, all standard British Whitworth, and looks like a brand new quarter 20. I think that's what that one is. So that's magnificent to have. What do we have here? Now, you know, these rarely come up. This is can you see that? These are motor tags, and this one in particular is a Wadkin and Company motor tag. And you know, I didn't pay very much of it. Someone suggested I make a belt buckle out of it, but I don't have any Wadkin and Company, and I just think the lithograph of their logo, and I love their propeller logo and stuff like that. I do have a motor on my RM that is not the proper motor that this tag could go on, so I mostly purchased that to get in the rat hole, and it was $5-6 bucks. So I was excited to get that. See what else we have here. Of course, these little bits and bobs, you would never order them because they just would be simply too hard to get. Now, these are interesting in the fact that the measuring embedded ruler in the Wadkin PK is made by Chesterman. And Chesterman were a precision ruler maker as far back as the mid-1800s. And so I have an infill missing on my PK, and so I was looking for a Chesterman ruler to cut up and make the infill to make up the section of ruler missing. And while so doing, I found a couple of other interesting things. One in particular, this little depth gauge, which I want to incorporate in the fence system for setting height gauges, and it is a Chesterman as well. So, and it's the same era as my saw. I thought it was very inexpensive, you know. But here's a Chesterman ruler that I'd like to embed in my fence too for setting heights for tenons. And this is marked off to 64ths of an inch. In fact, no, this one's marked off to 128ths of an inch. And that was done by hand. And these are some of the rules that I'm going to use to embed in the strips. They're not fantastic, but the hand carving of the letters is really quite interesting. It's much more about of a style, and I don't know if you can make that out. I believe this is the one. This is the one that matches my PK fence exquisitely. And I paid, you know, $10 for that, which is probably too much for an engineer's ruler that's knackered like that. But the etchings will all line up with my PK fence, and I think, to me, that's important. And so when I saw it, I grabbed it. Of course, some of this stuff was just thrown in, and here's a Chesterman folding 2-foot ruler, which I think is pretty interesting. Nice big bold letters, and so I was pretty excited. I think Mr. Wallace thought I was crazy, but maybe didn't quite understand what it was I was after. Oh, just a little engineer's clamp. This one happens to be a Moores and Rice Sheffield. These are cool little outfits. I'm sure as woodworkers we've all seen these as in wood. Let's see what we have here. Okay, so what is in this box? What is this box? Of course, the addiction of restoring machines and whatnot leads to metalworking, inevitably, and this is a Chesterman height gauge. These are pretty much obsolete in some ways, not all, but what this does is a gauge, and this one in particular is 18-inch high, and you can move that gauge. This one's very nice. It's got an exquisite, that's bronze, you push. It's got a lovely lead screw indicator. This holds all of your pieces, so these are little carbide scribers. So you clamp these on, and you'd set this on a granite plate and you would mark stuff out. So it's a precision height gauge. These are your scribing tools, and that's to put precision lines, okay, in the stuff you're marking. And so all of these things are held in place here. I'll have to determine how that works, but this is this little part here, I believe, is a height depth gauge that would go here, and you can measure precisely the depth of a hole. I paid $9 for this, and it reads, it says here, its variance is within 1/1000th of an inch, and so that's pretty amazing. I personally think it's just gorgeous looking, and I would have bought it, and you know, but I could use this for setting cutters. It's precise enough that I could set this little depth over here, and I could set this up, set this on a shaper, spindle shaper, and use it to set heights. So I could lock off, I could mark up, say, hey, when I have a cutter in here and I'm doing this, modern ones have digital readout, so this will be my digital readout for setting up shaper tooling, and of course marking up other things. So that's the UK, England, Mr. Wallace stash, and I thank you extremely, all my friends in England, America, and Canada, for supporting the Wadkin Temple, and my hats are off. I really appreciate the friends and all of the help I get. Thank you, Mr. Mark Wallace.